Hello all, we are in the very last chapter of Refuge Recovery, a Buddhist Path to Recovering from Addiction by Noah Levine. We are doing chapter 22 of part 2, Reflections on Recovery. The following are personal recovery stories from members of our Refuge Recovery community. We have included these stories for those new to recovery to get a sense of the various ways in which recovery happens. You are not alone in your suffering, your confusion, or your path of healing and recovery. Chapter 22. After this chapter, we're going to be moving on to doing the meditations only. Kina, you're adorable. Okay. Andrea. I was born perfect. When I look at pictures of that tiny face and hopeful eyes, something I was taught to do by the Dharma teacher, I understand there's nothing wrong with me. Nothing ever was. Nothing ever will be. Anything that happened before I came of age is not my fault. At the same time, everything about me is my responsibility. Recovery is full of paradoxes. I was born perfect and I am totally fucked up. It's not my fault. And it's totally my responsibility. Alcoholism and addiction are diseases I might never fully recover from. But I can be free of drugs, alcohol, starving, and overeating for as long as I can take refuge in my own recovery and stay close to the people who help me on the path of physical and emotional sobriety. I started drinking when I was 9, but the circumstances leading up to that first vodka and orange juice I gulped along with my Cocoa Puffs before I went off to 4th grade began long before. My mom was beautiful. She was an artist. She was also mentally ill when my father married her. Undiagnosed and self-medicated, she left for a year when I was 4 months old. I don't remember that abandonment, but apparently my body does. When I was 4, she tried to kill herself with me in the house. 4 may not be my lucky number. I never wanted to talk about these things or anything in my past because it made me feel, quote unquote, poor me. And being a victim disgusted me. I picked vodka for my first drink because that's what my mom liked. Mom had just announced to my older sister and me. I go like this because when I have chosen to drink, it has always been cheap whiskey. Because one of the very rare stories that I was told about my father by my grandmother was that he co-owned a bar in Los Angeles and that his favorite thing to drink was whiskey. So that's why I went, I picked vodka for my first drink because that's what my mom liked. Mom had just announced to my older sister and me that she wasn't coming down to make us breakfast anymore. That my sister was a miserable kid and that we were on our own. My sister's eyes brightened. "We can have pie for breakfast," she said. I was filled with hopeless despair and longing and rummaged for the vodka so I could feel close to my mom. Wow. Although for her alcohol was just to make the opiates kick in harder. Living a double life is what I remember most about childhood. There was the girl I was at school, popular and smart, already the all-A kid. I called that girl Puppet Me, because that's what I felt like inside. The real me was a girl so lonely at home, already lying to her friends about my mom and embarrassed to have anyone come over because of the syringes lying around from my mom shooting Demerol, and scarier still, my drug-addled, unkept, rage-filled mother. My dad was a doctor. He spent most days taking care of people he could actually help, but he was also the source of my mother's drugs. I called him a lot to come home from the hospital where he worked whenever I found my mom passed out on the floor, having fallen out of bed. I did this until the day he told me, quote, "She's all right," end quote, and didn't come right home. Then I moved out. I was 14. I moved in with my best girlfriend's family and wished I had thought of it sooner. Life at my best friend's house was free of alcohol, and her parents were kind, except for one little issue I buried entirely in sobriety. Since I was 9, her father had laid on top of me, kissing me and rubbing himself against me whenever I visited her house. Moving in made for easier access until her parents got divorced, but by then I was a fixture in their family, and I went with my friend and her sisters to their father's house on weekends. I honestly didn't know this was sexual abuse. I thought he was my boyfriend. I had been told in sobriety to stop calling him my first boyfriend. It lasted until I skipped 12th grade and went to college. I needed somebody's arms around me and was okay that they were his. Sobriety came to me unplanned, with the same random intensity that everything else I experienced did. I was with my teenage boyfriend at the doctor's getting birth control. I could never have thought to take care of myself in that way or any other. The doctor asked standard questions about my drug and alcohol use. I didn't think to lie about the combination of Xanax and alcohol I was consuming because I had already given up cocaine 6 months earlier on my own. The doctor looked at me and said, "You're going to die. You're going to go into a coma and not wake up, or do it behind the wheel of a car and take other people with you. I don't want you as my patient." Huh? I didn't know doctors could fire people. I walked out to the waiting room and told my non-addict boyfriend what she had said. I went to AA the very next day. I can't say it was because I didn't want to die. I had taken my mom's seconals many times. Seconals? Looked in the mirror and said, "Wake me when I die." Well, but something about the doctor's open contempt and accusations didn't jive with little Andy with the heart of gold. The name I was called all throughout childhood. I'm 27 years sober, though I didn't find my way to Dharma until 5 years ago. I got sober first try. I didn't like alcohol much. Like my mom, it was just to make the pills work quicker. And in my case, as a substitute for giving up coke. So many other tools got and kept me sober. One way or the other, I had to take the first step, admitting I was powerless over alcohol and drugs. Alcoholics Anonymous worked really well for that, as well as the 12-step fellowship of people my own age, all of whom were struggling with the same life and physical issues. The specificity of the 12-step world, however, troubled me. Addicts are rarely allowed to talk about one addiction in the rooms of another addiction, which confused the hell out of cross-addicted me. Wow, I always had issues with that as well. Yes, I was sober, but sober is insane. My body didn't like being here. Reality felt much too harsh. Before I had my first year sober, I had become anorexic, going down to 109 pounds at 5 feet 9 inches tall. Whoa. This time, it was Gabrielle Roth, an extraordinary dance teacher, who saved me. She introduced me to spiritual movement practices called the 5 Rhythms. She encouraged me and her other students to dance until we shattered ourselves, till we disappeared and only the dance remained. Gabrielle wanted us all to smash the ego, the false self, the one with the mind of its own that urges us to believe everything it tells us, and everything it tells us is awful. Dancing the 5 Rhythms was my first attempt at being in my body and really inhabiting this thing I had been trying to get away from since that morning of unbearable pain when my mom wanted to get away from my sister and me. I poured myself into dance, and instead of getting more grounded, I fluttered away even further, sometimes for 6 or 8 hours a day. And this is what I was, sober, but not fully there, running from sadness again, only this time with some really awesome music. My heart eventually led me to Dharma at Against the Stream in Santa Monica, where Noah, the ex-addict with tats on his neck and love in his heart, seemed to be living what he was teaching. So did the other teachers he trained. Plus, there was enough guys with spiderweb tattoos on their elbows to keep me interested until the cushion did. I didn't have to be a Buddhist. Noah said, be a Buddha instead. He also challenged my obsession with dance, asking what I thought would happen if I actually sat down. Certainly not my spending more time with sadness. Non-attachment, non-clinging, ? Anyone who said they could love without putting a net over the other person's head so he or she didn't go away didn't have my mom. And loving kindness towards myself, it just wasn't doable. But here's the thing. Just like the 12 steps in dance, if I take refuge in the Dharma embraces me. Truth-telling, the one without words that happens in the silence and in the precepts of non-harm and non-violence, works like a balm on the soul. Some of us get lucky early. Putting the plug in the jug is enough if alcohol is the problem, and we didn't drink the alcohol, problem solved. But for people like me, where talking away the anesthesia leaves me bleeding without relief, something older, wiser, and time-tested over thousands of years promises I can get free. And from the first time I tried Buddhism in Refuge Recovery until my last Dharma talk yesterday, I've received the same encouragement I now offer. These are my thoughts. Investigate them, try them out, and see what's true for you. Now, as a preview, I'm going to read the heading here on the appendix. Meditation is the cornerstone of our path. Here are a number of guided meditations, instructions to get you started. Also, seek out wise guidance from qualified Buddhist meditation teachers. And so, next time, we will be starting the rest of this book. This is what we just read in the last 28 chapters. This is what we're going to be reading. It'll be more of a showcase of my attempt of reading these so that you can listen to them and hopefully start these meditations. Now, if you go to www.refugerecovery.org, those meditations are already there for you to use starting right now. Excuse me. There are a male voice, and if you prefer that, I will keep reminding you that those are available. But I am looking very forward, not only for you guys, but for myself, to have them in my own rhythm. And for those that prefer a female voice, that will be available starting the next time I get in this book. I could go find some water. I got cat hair or something in my throat. All right. I love you guys. Namaste. See you soon. Good night.